Mr. Gilbert?
Here.
Mr. Detzel?
Here.
Mrs. Detzel?
Here.
Mr. T-Short?
Here.
Mr. Yoshimura?
Here. First up on the agenda, legislative updates.
Okay. My printer decided to take a break today, so I'm reading off my phone. The House Bill 110 Conference Committee was scheduled to meet at 10 a.m. this morning to issue its report on the compromise reached between the two chambers. And then the House was expected to vote today at 1 p.m. on the bill, and the Senate at 3:30. We sent it to the governor's desk, which would require his signature by July 1st. The governor also, when he signs, may disapprove of any items or item in House Bill 110 through action of light item veto. And I believe that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Okay, next is a presentation of Portrait of a Graduate.
Let's go ahead and introduce Lindsay Creasy. She can take it from there. Good evening, everyone. Tonight we have two Portrait of a Graduate presentations. One will be given by Daryl Yater, who will be giving an overview of our Portrait of a Graduate. He'll also be discussing how our portrait aligns with our strategic plan, as well as our final product. We'll then hear from two Northwest High School students that participated with us in our executive committee, and they'll be sharing their feedback and their takeaways of our new portrait competencies. So please join me in welcoming Daryl Yater as our first presenter.
So I just want to give context for the presentation the students are going to give, so the public has an understanding of kind of what they're presenting and why they're presenting it. We as a district committed that we were going to make sure that all of our students were employed, enrolled, or enlisted upon graduation with skills for the 21st century, which means that they're learning rigorous academic content, but also other skills that businesses and industry say they need in order for students to be successful and thrive in a complex future. So we connect this to our strategic plan that we rolled out in 2019. Our strategic plan has 5 key goal areas: student achievement, social emotional development, diversity and equity, financial stability, and a culture of trust. And as we talked about the Portrait of a Graduate, the Portrait of a Graduate is the through line that connects all of these things together, so that as we are working on student achievement, the through line is the Portrait of a Graduate competencies. Whether you're in preschool, 3rd grade, or 12th grade, these portrait competencies come through in how we teach and the skills that we're embedding as we go through the content to what we're already doing. Our student achievement goal in our strategic plan is about creating the rigorous and engaging environment for all students to achieve at their highest potential, with a focus on literacy and those 21st century skills. As I said, this is going to be our North Star. The portrait, and we'll go over the competencies in a moment, and that's really what the students are going to express, is in their words what these competencies mean to them. But the portrait is really our North Star. As I said, it's the through line for everything that we're doing, so that we are building those into all of the experiences that the students have as they go through all of our classrooms and all of our interactions with staff, to make sure all of those skills are embedded in who the students are as a graduate, because that's what our community has asked for. Even though it says Portrait of a Graduate, I want to take a moment and just really emphasize the fact that this is about who our students are when they graduate, but as a graduate, they are a reflection of all of their years in our district, beginning in preschool. And so as we talk about the Portrait of a Graduate as our through line, this begins with preschool. It begins through all elementary years, all classrooms, all adult interactions are framed through this portrait competency, so we're all speaking the same language and working toward the same goal. As a unified force, the district will achieve its goals, as long as we stay connected, unified, and focused. So our process was meeting with our stakeholders. Our stakeholder group was representative of parents, community members, business leaders, administrators, teachers, staff, students, and we met on these dates, January, February, March, and April. We actually started this process right before the pandemic hit and we had to shut down, which delayed it, so then we had to restart the process. So it was a little bit disjointed, but we brought it back together. We were led through this process by our vendor, our Battelle for Kids. They're an educational organization that lead a lot of educational improvements across the state. And so our facilitator led us through this process to help us get to our portrait competencies. As we went through, our committee really looked at what our parents, our committee, our business leaders were saying were the most important competencies that our community needed in graduates. This is extremely tailored to our community needs. It's not a one-size-fits-all that is the same portrait that people across the state or across the nation have. A lot of districts across the country have gone through this process, and everyone has a unique portrait that represents their community. So we're excited about the fact that this is unique to Northwest. Once we got through our process, our community stakeholders all said that these were the most important competencies that they wanted to see across the board in our graduates. Adaptability, our ability to be able to adapt and on the fly. We know things are going to happen and there's going to be things that kind of give us those curveballs and we need to be able to respond. Communication, obviously being able to communicate is an essential function, and being able to make sure that we have effective communicators as they graduate. Critical thinking also includes problem solving, being able to think through a problem in multiple solutions, being able to not just see one one path to a solution, but multiple paths, and being able to really think critically. So it's not what to think, it's how to think, being able to see all the different options and be able to weigh those options. Empathy, that our graduates are empathic people who value relationships and different perspectives. Having integrity, being able to walk the walk, being able to be a person of your word. And a learner's mindset, that there's always growth opportunities, that we're always moving forward, and we'll always have opportunities to learn. As adults, we embrace that as well, that we're always continually learning and growing and getting better. This graphic was voted on by our committee from a variety of different ways to visually represent what our portrait means. This has all of the competencies that were chosen in the outer ring with an icon that will denote what that is. One of the most important things for us was that this truly be representative of our district. And so the pictures that you see there are pictures of our students in our district. And it was important that we have our students represented in there, and that we have a variety of students in there from different grade levels to really truly represent the students that we serve. We actually, as a group, defined what these are. I gave you a kind of 30,000-foot high-level summary of what they are, but we as a team actually were able to customize the definitions of these to truly make it representative of what the committee who met with us and went through the process of looking at 21st century learning, what they defined it as. So we had some kind of generic language that we were able to start with, but we were able to customize that. So it's very exciting for me to be able to hear from our students tonight about what these mean to them, because as we move forward, these are the through lines that whether you're in preschool or you're in 12th grade or anywhere in between, these are the areas that we're going to continue to focus on through all of our experiences that are in the classroom and our informal interactions to make sure that we're developing these competencies. So with that, I want to turn it back over to Lindsay so she can introduce Joe and our students so they can really give context to what these competencies are, and then I'll kind of talk about our next steps as a district.
Thank you, Daryl. Up next, we'll have Joe Pollitt, who is the principal of Northwest High School, that will introduce our two students that participated in our program.
need a clicker? Okay.
Good evening, thanks for having us tonight. Again, my name is Joe Powell, principal of Northwest High School. I'm proud to introduce two of our students who will walk you through and kind of explain and elaborate on some of the competencies that have been described here. We've worked for probably about a month or so. Matthias and Kara worked with this presentation. We previewed it last Tuesday. There was a local public speaking consultant named Michael Davis who was gracious enough to spend half an hour with us on Zoom, and he previewed the presentation, gave them some really good feedback. And so I want to thank him for that. And, Kara and Matthias are going to join me up here, and I'll let them kind of talk through the presentation. So please come on up. We have Kara Caccini. She will be a senior at Northwest High School this year, and Matthias Johannes will be a junior at Northwest. So welcome. So you guys can stand here, and the microphone will go.
Here's good?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, this is our portrait of a graduate presentation. Which one's the one that,
The one on the right. The one on the right.
okay. Okay.
I'm Kara Puccini. I will be a senior next year at Northwest High School. And a little bit about me is I'm going to be singing Harry Styles in concert.
I'm Matthias Johannes. I'll be a junior this upcoming school year, and what I'm doing right now is just going to a park every day and running in circles until I get tired.
So our first meeting was just an overview of why we are doing Portrait of Graduate, and it basically explained the changing workforce and how new technologies are being created every day. We'll be having new jobs in the future and prepare our students for the future. And in the second meeting, we just discussed a long list of competencies of what we could possibly work with our students to prepare them.
Third meeting, basically what we did was we started pinpointing on what kind of competencies that we wanted to represent portrait of a graduate, right? We had maybe 10 or 12 at first, and then we would spend our time nailing those down and getting the specific 6 that we would get. Critical thinking, integrity, empathy, all of those. And that's what we spent our time doing. We nailed those, we had everybody figure out which ones would be the best representative. The fourth meeting, it was like we spent our time like editing those descriptions of the competencies, and we also spent our time adding anything else. We voted for the logo. We also decided the other competencies and how they would go directly into classrooms and all that.
The first competency is adaptability, and this one is very important, especially being a student, especially during COVID. You have to adapt to the changing classrooms and also adapt to the real world. So,
I kind of felt like adaptability was like really important for a lot of us this year. Some of us, especially with the pandemic and everything, some of us had to figure out how to go to school while social distance and stuff, so they couldn't work with their friends to get stuff done. Others of us like me who were virtual, we had to figure out how to do all these assignments coming from an email every Monday, which would come in a mountain, right? While trying to figure out how to adjust to being in a completely different grade from the one below us. And we had to learn how to manage our time, and we had to learn how to discipline ourselves so we could keep up with the work and not fail. And I felt like that was the key source of adaptability that we need to learn in case something like this or anything similar happens again.
the second competency is communication, and this one is very important, considering when you are in a classroom, you have to work with other students and with teachers, and you have to be able to communicate with your teachers about what you need, and you have to communicate with other students as well.
Yeah, adding on to that, like, I remember my teacher told me once, we can't help you if you don't tell us, right? So it's always about the communication and stuff like that, and I honestly felt like even if it wasn't in person, I remember I'd always be sending emails to my teachers, always trying to get them to respond to my emails so I could get that help. And whenever I'd work in class, I would do everything to keep up with my classmates. And honestly, without communication, it's really hard to get group assignments done because there's no synergy, there's nothing. And I honestly felt like it was really important.
The third competency is critical thinking, and this is also very important because if you don't have critical thinking, then you really can't really get anything done. And you have to have critical thinking when you're doing your assignments, and you have to have critical thinking in the real world when you are doing jobs or talking to your boss or something like that.
Yeah, I feel the same. I mean, sometimes like my teacher will give me, or teachers in general, will give me something that I've never seen before. And they'll be like, Nick, the students from before your grade were able to do this, so you have to figure this out. And I'll be like, and so honestly, if I wasn't able to think outside of what I had been shown so far, I wouldn't be able to do some things that my teachers will assign to me all the time. Like sometimes my teacher will tell me, do this essay, but instead of doing it in this format, do a different format. Or sometimes my math courses, they'll drop a different kind of math problem or something like that. And sometimes you just have to grit your teeth and manage with it. And I feel like that applies in the real world as well because that's what workplaces do. They'll up the bar every time you think you're right where you need to be.
The fourth competency is empathy, and this is also important. All the competencies are important, but if you have empathy, then you can work with others and you can understand others' problems.
Yeah, same thing here. Honestly, if a person isn't trying to understand what they're thinking or what kind of angle you're approaching from, if you're not willing to understand other people, then you can't synergize and you can't mesh your work with someone else's. Because like a lot of things in this world are made with teamwork. Different designs like cars, buildings, schools, programs, they're not made by one person. They're made by a group of people. Most of them have leaders, but even the leader can't do without people who are willing to work with them. And that's why you need empathy to do anything that involves more than one person, which is mostly everything in this world.
The fifth competency is critical thinking.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
I don't really know what happened.
Is integrity, actually. And if you don't have integrity in your work, then how are you going to be able to present yourself and show yourself to the teacher and say, this is my work? But you have to have integrity in your work, and you have to have integrity with yourself if you're going to present yourself to others in the world.
Yeah. Integrity helps with self-confidence. And sometimes if you don't have the confidence to get out of bed, you honestly might not have the confidence to show your face in front of your teacher or your friends or something like that. And if you don't have confidence in yourself, you can't do anything. And that's why integrity boosts confidence. When you have integrity, you feel empowered to do stuff for yourself and for others. So it's definitely important.
And the sixth and final competency is learner's mindset. If you don't have a learner's mindset, then you will not go anywhere in life. You have to have a learner's mindset to get schoolwork done, to get your job done, to take care of family members. You have to have a learner's mindset to honestly exist in this world.
Learner's mindset is the ability, like, when I think of learner's mindset, I think of the ability to take a hit, realize why you took a hit, and then bounce right back to throw the blow back. Your teacher might hit you with something out of the blue. I remember I was sitting in a room one day and I was just doing my homework, and 3 essays popped up on my screen. I have to do them in a week, and I was shocked because that was new to me, right? But when you take time to think about it, all you have to do is relax, calm down, and get with the work. Take a hit, bounce back. And when you make mistakes, you have to realize where you're wrong and grow from it.
Yeah,
So,
if you're not willing to learn, then you just can't get anything done.
you'll just stay stuck in a hole, and you'll never be able to dig yourself out as it gets further and further down. Oops.
And this is the logo of Portrait of a Graduate.
I felt like this represented it a lot because, for one, it didn't feel too crowding or complicated, and we both felt actually that it would show everything in a simplified style where everybody would see it and like, bam, we get it. We know what they're doing. So yeah, that's how we felt about it. And
Thank you.
thanks.
First of all, you guys did an amazing job sharing the presentation. was in a couple of breakout groups with Matthias a couple times.
Yeah.
And you did a great job. You really are. You should be very proud of him, and Kara as well. It's pretty neat that our students get to kind of chisel the next direction for our school district, and your input is invaluable to us, and we appreciate it.
I am so glad that you're able to be here in person. We can see your faces, to hear the presentation face to face. You guys did an amazing job. And I love your enthusiasm and your dedication, and I think you nailed it. Thank you.
Very good job. Excellent.
No tough questions from the board. I prepped them. Ask all the tough questions.
Boy, they covered it. They were so good.
So Joe, I want to thank you, and I want to thank the two of you for being here. I'm extremely impressed. You two were so relaxed with what you said, and there were no note cards,
I
no cues. You know this stuff, and that to me is really powerful. You went through a process with us to develop these, and you know it as well as we do, and that is the way it should be system-wide. If everybody knows this as much as you guys do, it becomes who we are, and it becomes who we graduate. And that's part of our process moving forward, is to take all of this work, and over the next year, our teachers will be working with our curriculum department to really operationalize what this is going to look like, so that you guys will start to really intentionally see this embedded in the upcoming years of the work you're doing. And as we have this common language and continue to have this common understanding, we will meet the goals that we've set out. And I appreciate that you two articulated that so well for us tonight. Thank you.
Kara, enjoy your concert, and good luck in your upcoming cross-country season.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay, Butler Tech update?
Yeah, just one thing, Mark. The state of Ohio has come down, and there's 49 career tech districts in the state of Ohio. And when you apply to, say, for Butler Tech or whatever, you get interviewed, by the teacher, by a group of people. So the state has come back now and said that we are not allowed to interview any students. So now the career tech schools are scrambling on how they're going to pick the kids that get in specific classes and that. So we were just told this like a week ago. So I'll have a more update once we decide what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So more to come once we decide with the career tech schools, throughout the state, how they can get kids into the classes.
And thankfully, we're through the process for this year, so you guys
Yes.
are looking forward.
This doesn't start for not this coming school year, the following school year. And so I'll let you know once we know something.
Some of these programs have huge applicant
Oh, yeah,
pools.
I mean, we've had, 125 kids apply for 30 spots. We don't have a problem, we just have a problem getting more programs out there.
Sure.
So instead of vetting them through some kind of either student questionnaire or interview, there's
You know,
just open it up.
They're
That's why there's more to come.
That's why there's more to come. They're trying to decide how they're going to get you into the particular class or you into what class you want. I don't know. They're going to have a tough decision on how they're going to do that.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Thank you. Okay, next, any reports from any employee organizations?
Dave? Dave Fryer, the president of the Teachers Union, is here tonight.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Talk back to Paul, Kara, and Matthias. Excellent job, guys. I've known them for a long time, so it's good to see them. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Dave Fry. I am president of the Teachers Association. I brought Ms. Angie Smith. She is the vice president of the Teachers Association as well. I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity to speak tonight on behalf of the teachers of the Northwest School District. We are all aware that the school district is in the process of finding and hiring a new superintendent. ultimately is your decision, school board, to select the next leader of our district. I have received numerous emails, texts, phone calls, and have had face-to-face conversations with teachers, various district employees, parents, and other community members as to the process of selecting a new superintendent. The one question that was almost always asked was, why is the board in such a hurry to hire a new superintendent? People are seeing this hiring as being rushed and want to see the board do a thorough candidate search to make sure that we get a superintendent that is the best fit for the Northwest School District. At this point in the summer, many people have already accepted new positions, limiting the candidate pool. Appointing an interim superintendent allows for the Hamilton County Educational Service Center and the board to take the time to speak with members of the district and better understand what they feel are important qualities of that our new superintendent should possess. Employees, parents, and community members have also asked if they will have any input. We know the teachers researched a survey, but felt the questions that were asked were not the right questions that needed to be asked. The questions on the survey did not allow for comments to be made, and many employees commented that to the board that the vague statements were all qualities that not only you would want a superintendent to have, but that should be required for the position. The open-ended response that was offered at the end was simply a box for other comments. While this gave an opportunity for teachers' input, it did not allow for specific comments about qualities that were mentioned in the survey. Over the past year, the district has worked to include teacher and community input in many aspects of our district, including designing buildings, virtual learning, portrait of a graduate, and diversity and inclusion. I think we can all agree it is very important that everyone feels heard and is supportive of the new superintendent. Taking the time to gather the wants and needs of the members of this district will help to ensure that the new leadership is supported by the staff, students, and community. I want to thank you again for the opportunity to speak tonight and voice our concerns. Thank you, Dave.
Comments or questions for Dave? Okay, that brings us to 9.2, community comments. I just wanted to read a statement first. Good evening. I just wanted to say thank you for all of our residents who submitted community comments. The Northwest Board of Education welcomes the opportunity to listen to Northwest local school district residents' comments, suggestions, and concerns on educational issues. It is important to remember that the board conducts our meetings in public, but the meetings are not a public forum. The intent of the meeting is to allow the board to complete the needed business. Per our policy 0169.1, each submission will be given 3 minutes to address any agenda items of any topic during the community comment section. However, no more than 15 minutes will be devoted to the public participation unless the board votes unanimously to continue discussion. No response to this submission will occur from the board members or district administration during this time. Once the 15-minute time frame is over, appropriate follow-up by district administration may occur at a later time if warranted. So tonight we have 4 community comments. The first to present is Nicole Talby, and she's speaking to the superintendent hiring process.
Hello, thank you for allowing me this time. First, I apologize, I've been yelling at baseball games all weekend. My name is Nicole Talby. My husband Tom and I are proud graduates of Corrine High School, and we have 3 boys, one at Corrine High School, one at Corrine Middle School, and one at Corrine Elementary. I am a candidate for the school board in the November election. I am active in many of our schools through PTA and as well as a community business partner. I have a very vested interest in the success of this district. Most recently, I participated in the Corrine High School building principal search and the interview process. It was an honor to sit on that committee with other PTA members and boosters, as well as dedicated school staff. I am here today to ask that the board do your due diligence in the search process for a new superintendent. Our staff, children, and community deserve the best candidate the best candidate that will bring growth and excellence to our district. We should not be rushing to fill this position in the next 30 days. What is the harm in naming Mr. Yater the interim superintendent until the best candidate is found, whether that be him or another candidate? The district needs to take the time to find the most qualified person to be the leader of this district. The teachers and staff deserve to be heard. Our community stepped up and supported the district when you asked for a levy, the most recent levy, and we are now asking that you listen to us and finding the best person to continue to lead this great district. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nicole. Okay, next up is Christine Colliver, and she is also speaking to the hiring of the superintendent process.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak before you this evening. My name is Christine Colliver. I've been a resident in the Colerain District for 17 years now. I have one student at Taylor Elementary, and I have one going into Colerain Middle School this upcoming year. I always like to give kudos. I try to make it a practice to give kudos before criticism or concern, so I just want to thank everyone for the hard work and that it goes well beyond this room for this past year with everything that was done to accommodate our students to be in class or to be remote, at least to have the option. So I'm grateful for that, so thank you. Now on to my concern. After watching the last board meeting, I found myself concerned over the fact that the hiring of a new superintendent was in a 30-day time crunch. And I feel like giving yourself such a short window allows the opportunity to just settle on the best you can find in that window versus doing your due diligence and finding the absolute best candidate that our district deserves. I am confident that Mr. Yater will do an excellent job in the interim position. Therefore, that gives you, the board, to thoroughly vet a candidate. While ultimately the board makes the final decision, I believe allowing our district employees to have some input of some key characteristics that they would like to see is monumental. They should have a voice. They are critical in our success as a district. The district asked its residents to support a levy that quite honestly became very contentious. Nonetheless, we were able to get it passed because our children are worth it. Our teachers are worth it. Our community is worth it, and so now we come to you asking that you remember that our children deserve the best, and to please do not allow your decision to come because you feel you need to meet a deadline, but because you found someone that shares our vision for our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Okay. Next is Carrie Berger, and she is also speaking to the superintendent process.
Hi, my name is Carrie Berger, and I have lived in Colerain Township for 28 years. I have 3 children, one at Colerain High School, actually this year, 2 at Colerain High School, and one still at the Colerain Elementary School. I, just like everybody else here, want to thank you for your job and what you do for us. I'd like to also ask you to do your part and taking your time to fill this position. Although I think Mr. Yater will do a great job as an interim, I think that it is important to take your time, really look at the candidates, see what is the best fit for our school district. I would love to see someone that is fresh and has new ideas, new approaches. I've looked at the job openings for our district, and I think it's a little bit alarming as to how many positions are available. That bothers me as a mom, that so many teachers, good teachers, have left our district, and I'd love to know why. What is their reason? And so many teachers in our district have children that don't go to school here. And I'd love to know why about that as well. I think that it is super important to be all in. I would love to see someone here that lives in the community, not only supports the school and our children, but also supports the community and is a fresh, very well-known face in our area. And I would just like for you to take your time and not rush the position. I think Daryl will do a great job as an interim, and just keep your minds open and really look for somebody that's a good fit, that is excited to be here, makes this an exciting work environment for our staff at every school, not just one, not just a couple, not just a few, but all of them, and really has the children's best interest at heart. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Carrie. And last, we have Monica Bowles. She'll be speaking to the superintendent search.
Hi, everybody. I'm not going to be too long, but I do want to just kind of piggyback what everybody else has already stated and say that I thoroughly agree with the previous comments. But one of the things I want to do, first of all, I want to thank Mark and Matt, because meeting before last, you all really pushed to have community and teacher involvement. And I think that, or input, I should say, on the superintendent search. And I think that resonated with a lot of the community quite well, including myself. And I really appreciate that. I also want to say that I've done my own research, because I know a lot of people in education and beyond. And I've also sat on, I don't know, a lot of boards over the past 25 years or so. Not that I'm that old, but I just want to make sure that that there's inclusion in the superintendent search. I think that there is, and I've been very vocal about this, I think there's a need to address some cultural issues, some long-standing cultural issues throughout this district, and inclusion in the district. I think that it's important, while we go through the superintendent search, to look at people who have experience with one of the most socioeconomic diverse districts that we have. We're in one of those most racially diverse and socioeconomic districts in the state of Ohio. We rank up there. And I think it's important to have someone lead this district who has that kind of experience and knowledge in dealing with so many different groups. You know, one of the other things that I want to point out is that there has been quite a bit of flight from our district. And I know Mr. Bowling had mentioned specifically some comments around African Americans and some of the challenges that come with certain populations in this district. I want to be clear and clarify, because I felt some kind of way about that comment. There are a significant portion of people in this district who are African Americans and others who do not fit into that lump. I think we run into dangerous territory when we start getting into stereotypes of people and demographics. There are a lot of African Americans who have pulled their children out of this district. I am one of those parents who's looking at private school for my own daughter. Where all African Americans are not poor or uneducated and beyond. My own father was a physician. My mother is an RN. We value education as well. All of us do. Right now there's an issue with flight in this district. It's been going on for years. It's nothing new, and it's not white flight. I want to clarify that. It's not white flight. It's flight, period. Okay? I can sit up here and name you 20 people in my own community that I know who happen to be African American who have pulled their children out of this district. I also know white families who have pulled their children out of this district. And so what I'd like to hear about more from you all is what you plan to do about that, and how can we work on retaining our community members. There's needs that people feel are not being met across this district for a variety of reasons. I think it's important from a cultural standpoint, not as a black person, not as a white person, but as a person. We all benefit when there's diversity and inclusion, not from a committee, but what we're actually doing in the processes. It can't be something that we talk about and discuss. It has to be something that we do with intention. And I hope that those things are taken into consideration with all hiring practices in this district, from superintendent and everything else and beyond. And when we're doing things like posting positions for a few days, the state minimum requirement, I don't feel that we're doing all we can to maximize the talent that we need for this district, for leadership and beyond, and under that, and over that. I would like to see more inclusion from our teachers and community members, and I think their voices need to be heard, specifically around a superintendent search. And I know Mr. Yater, I'm sure he'll be a very good interim superintendent, and maybe he'll be the superintendent, I don't know. But I think that we all owe it to each other, to our community. I think you all as board members owe it to the community as well, to make sure that there was a thorough search, and I think that most people would agree that that cannot happen in 30 or 60 days, realistically. I've talked to other people that I know in high levels of education, and it is not an uncommon thing to take a year, up to a year, to do a thorough search, and I think that that is what we need in our district, and I'm hoping that part of that will bring on some new cultures to our district as well. So I know I'm out of time, or just about out of time, so I'll end it. But thank you all for listening.
Thank you, everybody, for participating in the community comments. Everything will be taken into consideration collectively as a board and as well as our AO team. Okay, that brings us to 10.1, the adoption of the superintendent consent items.
So for the consent items for tonight, we have typical personnel items, including 10 resignations and retirements, 7 initial appointments, and we have 3 administrative change in statuses, and I want to talk a little bit about each one of those. We do have a vacancy that happened in central office because one of our curriculum administrators took a different job in the district, and so that opened up a posting that was posted. We did go through an interview process, and Lori Reilly, principal of Taylor, was selected to be the assistant director for curriculum. So that opened up a position at Taylor Elementary. We also had the position for Corrine High School principal. So I want to pause and just kind of talk about our process for finding principals. Whenever a vacancy opens up, I go into the building, I work with the staff, we have a meeting where all staff are included, and we do a group level assessment. So there are about 25 posters put up on the wall with various questions about leadership, the building specifically, the community, and teachers and staff members literally walk around and they answer those questions themselves, individually. At the end of that, they go into small groups and they get a set of posters. And then all of that information, that small group analyzes that information, and based on all of the comments from all of the people in that room, they decide what are the 3 to 5 most important qualities that their next leader needs to address all of the things that are listed on that, in those papers. We do a similar process for parents so they can give input into the process as well. And then the list of qualities are combined. Once they're combined, we write specific interview questions aligned to those qualities, so that as we're asking candidates questions, we are asking questions that are giving us the information we need to see if we're getting someone who matches the characteristics the parents and the staff members feel are important for that building. So at Taylor Elementary, I'm excited to say that Casey Schurz, who was a co-principal at Pleasant Run Elementary, went through that process, and he is the new principal at Taylor Elementary. We went through this process at Corrine High School, and at the end of our process, we had about 30 people on the interview committee, and when we finished our process, there wasn't a clear candidate that really matched all of the characteristics across the board for all of the groups. And so we actually kind of went back to the drawing board, and we actually approached Erin Davis, the current assistant principal at Corrine High School. We believe Erin has all of the qualities that the parents and the staff members were asking for, and so Erin has agreed to take the role of interim principal for Corrine High School. And like we did at Corrine Middle School with Mr. Moore, when he was brought in as interim for a year, we will reevaluate that in the spring, like we did for Mr. Moore. So those are on there tonight, and I wanted to call those out and congratulate them. We also have vendor contracts for the 21-22 school year. We have donations that are being brought to you for approval. Taylor Elementary is accepting a donation from Coca-Cola. We have Belvedere Productions, who is donating to the Northwest and Colerain High School drama clubs. WLWT is donating part of their community project, and then Blackbaud Giving Fund is donating to Pleasant Run Middle School. So we thank them for all of their contributions to our district. We also have on there a business item concerning the Struble Elementary Bridge behind the building. And I want to give Chris McKee a moment to talk about why that is on there. So the board is informed about the situation with the Struble Bridge.
Yeah, so just to give you a brief update, we've been watching this bridge for several years now. It's the original bridge that was put in when the neighborhood was developed and the school was built in that area. As we previously discussed in some of our other meetings, this is due to deferred maintenance. As you know, we've got about $10 million worth of deferred maintenance in roofing and roughly $30 million throughout the district in other areas. So it's a very difficult juggling act. This was a thing that we thought that we could get through at least another year. Just remember that we're only budgeting $800,000 a year for our permanent improvements. So there's only so much money to go around, and this year a lot of the money is being spent on roofing. However, in the past couple months, with the rainstorms that we've had go through the area, it has eroded part of the bridge, the abutment of the bridge. So therefore, we were forced to shut the bridge down. We didn't feel it was no longer safe to have kids around it. The corrections that'll need to be made is roughly a 20-foot wing wall to divert the water and riprap put around that to protect it. We brought in engineers to take a look at it to see what needed to be done. That was the correction that they thought needed to be made. If you don't know, also, when you're dealing around waterways, a lot of times we need to get the Army Corps of Engineers involved, which can be a very lengthy and difficult process. So we've looked at several things. You know, do we want to close the bridge? We've got roughly 55 kids that live in the neighborhood behind there. Roughly 25 to 30 walk that bridge every day. So I think it's a benefit to the district. It would cost roughly $25,000 just to demo it. And when we looked at what the pricing was to repair it, some of the prices came back were close to $50,000. And if you recall, $50,000 is the bid threshold. And when it got close to that range, I felt it necessary that we put that out for public bid so we can try to get the best pricing we can. So that's the avenue that we're looking at right now. Like I said, there's kids that walk it every day. If we did shut that down, we would more than likely have to add another bus route, and every bus route is roughly $55,000. So there again, it pays for the bridge. So that's the recommendation that I'm making, is that we repair that bridge.
And the last thing on the consent items is a overnight field trip for the Colerain High School cheerleaders to go to cheer camp at Miami University. With that, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the adoption of the consent items as listed.
So moved.
Second. There's a motion and a second. Any questions or comments?
I'd just also like to comment, I think the bridge is also important for community connectivity in general, you know, not just to and from school, but just to keep our neighborhoods connected as well.
So is it 75 total then, 25 demo, 50 to rebuild?
No, that's just the budget that was put in. Like I said, we received a couple prices, and they were up around the $50,000. Now that's been a month or so ago when we got those, which then we called the engineer again. We had to do bid documents, drawings, whatnot that you have on the agenda tonight. So just in case it goes over that. If you recall where that bridge is, it's a very difficult area to get to. Probably Peacock Lane is closest, where if they use concrete, they would have to pump. If they come in the other way, they would actually have to go all the way around the back of the new building and all the way down through the field to finally get to that tributary to the Mill Creek.
And just for verification, so the green space project that we talked about a year or so ago, that all got nixed? There's no...
I've heard that that's still on hold. I think the point where that stopped was one of the residents, and Duke, if you remember, had just started building that property, so they weren't in a position to move forward with that. However, I hear that that could come back up down the road.
And then was the bridge in that, I can't remember.
Actually, one of the things
discussion.
we discussed in that project was the possibility of actually putting a roadway and a drive bridge across there, and then there would be a park down in that wetland. We would be able to gate that off so that we could allow residents in during the day to utilize the park, but then close it off at night to secure the facility and the property.
While we got your attention, I noticed that they cleared out that property on Pool next to CHS. What are they going to blacktop that? Are they going to?
No, we're not doing anything with that right now.
Just cleaned it up?
Just cleaned it up, keep it mowed and looking nice.
Good. Any other questions or comments? Consent items passed 5-0. And that brings Amy Wells for fiscal consent items.
Good evening. First, I'd like to ask the board to dispense with reading of our regular meeting that was held on June 7th and our special meetings that were held on June 16th and June 21st. We also have the May financial report, and with that, we had our all funds balance at $58.8 million, with our general fund unreserved balance at $38.3 million. Our revenues year-to-date as of May were $96.8 million, or at 97% through the year. And remember, we receive a majority of our revenue twice a year through our property taxes. So we're going to the end of the year with revenue. And our expenditures were at $86 million, or about 90% of the way through the year as the end of May. Our investment average rate of return was at 0.53%. And our list of monthly bills for the month of May were our routine monthly bills, as well as we had our bond interest payments. We purchased some Chromebooks. We have our summer enrichment program, our letters PD for this next year, the materials for that, as well as a chiller, some bleacher repair, some music supplies. We held a focus group for our parent mentor, a grant that pays for that. We had a media contract for Waycross and our pandemic supplies, as well as our auxiliary and grant fund payments that we have throughout the year. And then it's also fiscal year end. So at fiscal year end, we start gearing up for the next year. So the next item is to accept, approve, and appropriate our fiscal year 22 federal and state grants, as well as the severance fund and our ARP, which is like ESSER 3 pandemic new grant from the federal government. And then we have, as we close the year, we have our fund-to-fund transfers, and these fund-to-fund transfers are for our school fee waivers. And then we also have the seed money for the employee severance fund that we've talked about with our forecast, and now it's time to set it up for next year and then seed it with our carryover balance, so that we don't have significant swings from when employees are eligible to retire to when they actually do retire. In our forecast and our planning, we're able to put it in a separate fund and kind of be self-funded, similar to workers' comp, and then be able to keep our forecast pretty consistent in our budget, and then just fund based on projections of eligibility and years of service. So with that, it would be $1,108,000 for the transfers. And with that, I'd like to ask the board to approve the fiscal consent items as listed.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Amy, I just want to say that I feel it's very fiscally responsible that we do that fund. It keeps our balance sheet very nice and even versus, like you were saying, the swings. When we discussed this last week before the meeting tonight, I thought that was just a very good strategy so that we can always do a presentation of what things are in a most accurate, real-time form. So thank you for setting that up. And fiscal consent items passed 5-0.
Next, as fiscal year end, we have advances from the general fund. So at the end of each year, we have to do, with federal and state grants, you have to spend the money first and then ask for drawdowns. Well, closing the year, we ask for drawdowns, but the state also has to close their year. So they do an early June cutoff, and then we are still processing things. And so we do have some advances that we need to advance money from the general fund to close the year, to turn around in July and just advance it right back in order to do the drawdown from the state to get the federal and state grant money back. So it's just a year-end timing thing to transfer money, to advance money over, advance it right back. So about $99,000, and then we have our, so I asked the board to approve advances of $99,928 from the general fund to fiscal year 21 grant funds with negative balances, and then fiscal year 22 to advance it back to general fund.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions or comments? And that passes 5-0.
And finally, we have our final fiscal year 21 appropriation resolution. What this is, have our appropriation resolution at $134 million to reflect our year-end balances for fiscal 21. And as of March, we were at $143 million, so we've actually been able to close the books and reduce budgets and in the year better than we had projected for all funds. So I ask the board to approve the fiscal year 21 permanent appropriation resolution for $134.5 million.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Questions, comments? Resolution passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Next is personnel info, classified employee handbook.
So the next two items are handbooks. They are on the agenda for information tonight for you to review. If you have questions about any of the handbooks, the classified handbook, or any of the variety of student services handbook, enrollment, attendance, athletics, coaches, feel free to reach out. We'll get you answers to your questions. They will be on the next agenda for approval.
Okay. The superintendent update.
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be the interim as you go through a process. And I want to talk to specifically some of the things that were brought up. Dave brought up the fact that our staff have been really included in a lot of decisions and a lot of things that are moving forward tonight. A lot of the things such as Portrait of a Graduate, where our students were so articulate about, are things that we have collaborated with our staff, our parents, and our community. And it is my commitment to keep those things moving forward and to make sure that we honor the process and progress that we are making, and to keep us on that as we go through the process to find the next superintendent. And I'm honored to be the bridge to keep that going and to keep it connected. And I do want to just kind of review the fact that with our ESSER funds that we got from the federal government, over $30 million to address learning loss and the pandemic-related response. A lot of the postings that are out there are ESSER-funded positions to increase staff to address the learning loss, to address the needs that we have coming in the fall. So additional teachers, additional counselors, additional deans. So over 60 of our positions that we have posted so far this year for our teachers, and another about 40 for our classified staff, have all been postings related to increased staff due to ESSER funds, not because teachers are leaving the district. We do have staff leaving, and we do exit surveys, and we do analyze that, and a lot of the things that we hear are that they're leaving for relocation, advancement, or salaries. So I do want to just acknowledge that we do have a lot of positions, but a lot of them are ESSER funded, so we can address some of the learning loss and some of the pandemic-related responses. Thank you.
And just to be clear, you're saying new positions.
Yes, those were new, not replacement positions, all of the ESSER funded positions.
Great, thank you, Daryl. Is there any questions for Daryl, comments? Okay, that brings us to board member comments. Joe?
Okay, I just want to recap what the community has spoken about, the four people that spoke before the board. I can only speak for myself as one board member with one vote. We have a monumental task to name the superintendent because of the abrupt departure of the former superintendent. This task will not be easy. We have started a search to get the best individual for the district. I have heard from administrators, friends, and even people that I've met at Kroger's and other businesses. The common denominator here is that I figured out that all these people wanted to, out of the next superintendent, is number one, transparency, number two, accountability, and number three, and most importantly, being able to reach out to the community, to be a part of the community. I do not take this endeavor lightly. When I vote, it will not be rumor or politically motivated. Please understand that. This is a tough job. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Jim?
Just want to thank Kara and Matthias. They did a great job in their presentation tonight for the Portrait of a Graduate. And like Joe said, I don't think any of us up here take hiring a superintendent lightly. I mean, this is our main job, is to hire a superintendent to run this district. So I think, the five of us will get together and we'll decide as a group, and we'll decide what's the best for the district in moving forward. Other than that, if anybody's got any questions or anything from me, they can call me, email me, and I'll talk to you.
Thank you. Yeah?
Couple things. One, I know we already recognized her, but had the opportunity to attend the Colerain Chamber of Commerce Hometown Hero and meet Kiva's family, and just want to, again, congratulate her. What an honor. What a really neat night.
Stand up, Kiva.
Great job. Also, as always, want to thank for the generous donations, especially Belvedere Productions. That's going to be a nice little boost for both Colerain and Northwest Drama departments, so that's very exciting. So I think that's really neat. Oh, and I did just get literally just got an update that said the House and Senate approved the budget bill. Preliminary reports are that the bill retained the House version of school finance. So maybe the governor will change something.
All right, we'll see.
Can only hope. And then just kind of echo, I appreciate everybody coming and speaking. I also want you to know that we do take this very seriously. Working with Hamilton County ESC, reaching out to individuals that, to make sure that they're applying for positions, and from other districts. The survey that went out for the staff, that will, and it's the whole staff, it didn't just go out to teachers, the entire Northwest Local School District staff that survey went out to. So that gets back to Hamilton County, I believe June 30th it ends, and we'll get the feedback on that as well. We had the opportunity to meet with all the building administrators that I would hope to think that they do represent their buildings, the teachers, the staff in their buildings. We had a couple hours, I believe the board met with them as well. So it's not just 5 of us saying, oh, we want this person or we want that. We really are getting feedback, and we're using Hamilton County Educational Service Center to help facilitate looking for as many candidates as we can get, and then we'll go through them.
Thanks, Pam. Matt?
Yeah, I'd also like to thank Kara and Matthias for their presentation. Especially, make note that, like Darryl mentioned, that they spoke up here, off the cuff, without note cards, and did an incredible job, I think, and they're to be commended. And thank you for everyone with their citizens' comments. I do hear you, and you're being taken into consideration, and we're, working through our process. I think you heard some of the other processes and how we, as a district, search for principals, and this is the current process we're moving forward to look for a superintendent. Thank you.
Pam, you stole I was going to get Kiva and embarrass her in front of everybody. So I just want to echo, Kiva, thank you, and congratulations on being our hometown hero. Then just to reiterate what everybody said about Kara and Matthias, I was in a couple of breakout groups during the Portrait of a Graduate, and I watched that process from day one. I think I may have missed one of the meetings, but it really is kind of a fascinating process, because one of the questions I came up with is, like, how are we going to do this with preschoolers? Like, really, how are we going to do this? And so as we build these processes to build it into, I think, are really incredible, and will have great outcomes with our students. I also want to congratulate Aaron Davis for going to Coleraine High School, and Casey Schurz to Taylor Elementary. Thank you for the donations, and just I want to thank the community for speaking. I'll speak for myself. I know that all of us do take the job very serious to find the next leader for our school district. I think it's critical that we make sure that we practice what we preach, and that is, if we're going to expect a pillar of trust, then we need to create an environment of trust, and that's an inclusive process, and that needs to be taken in great consideration as we pick this next person. And that's no disregard to you, Darryl, at all. I think you're an incredibly bright guy, very brilliant, and you have a heart for our district for sure. And so we will do our due diligence, we will do our best practice to find somebody to lead your children. And other than that, that's all I have. I appreciate everybody being here. Our next meeting, just to let everybody know, will be July 9th, and it is a early bird meeting at 7:30 a.m. And it's not because we're hiding something, and we want to do it before everybody gets out of bed. It's the end of the year. Well, these are the things I hear on social media. They got something up their sleeve, and they need to do it, before I get my cereal fixed.
Can I explain that? Right?
Absolutely, please.
So, in the world of education, we actually have our own section of Ohio Revised Code 3313, and part of that is that July 10th is a magic date for educators. After July 10th, districts do not have to let someone out of their contract. So as we continue our hiring process, we typically, as you see, and it was brought up earlier, as you see our postings get shorter and shorter as we get into June, it's because our principals are having to review candidates, set candidate pools, interview, check references, and make recommendations for hire. And if we stretch that out too long, we go beyond the July 10th date. So as we get into June, we are really scrambling to try to push that hiring process, maintain the integrity of our process, but do it quicker, because July 9th is the board meeting where if we are hiring someone from another district, it's the meeting that we approve their contract with us so they can resign from their current district. If it happens after July 10th, the district does not have to let them out, and then we lose out on a candidate. So the July 9th meeting is literally so we can approve new staff who are choosing to come to Northwest from the district they're currently in to allow them to get out of their contract. Thank you for letting me explain that.
No problem. Thank you for explaining this so well. I wouldn't have been able to get that out. Next is the adjournment of the meeting.
Second.
Motion in a second. That passes 5-0. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening.